This is a story, my story, about the very powerful plant medicine better known as ayahuasca or Mama Aya. I'm going to describe to you today how ayahuasca literally called me to Peru to work with her when I previously never even heard of it, other than maybe mentioned once or twice, but I had no idea what it was. But she pointed it out to me. She called me to Peru to work with her, and the things she showed me were both amazing and quite disturbing. I'm going to show you and explain to you my experience of how I was called, how ayahuasca showed me the web of darkness that we are all caught up in, and other amazing details of how this powerful plant medicine changed my life and even the life of family members and ancestors who weren't there to partake in the ceremony. Amazing story that I have to share with you today. My story begins in late 2017 into early 2018, mainly in 2018, when my spirit guides kept telling me, Peru, Peru, Peru. You need to go to Peru. Not only did I not have the funds to do so, I had no desire or thoughts of ever going to Peru. But my guides were very persistent, and I didn't know why, and they didn't show me why. Until one day I went on my computer, and there was a window opened up. There's nobody in my house or on my computer. And the window was opened up to a YouTube documentary called Reality of the Truth with the actress Michelle Rodriguez and the shaman Freddie Puma. When I started to watch this documentary and Freddie Puma came onto the screen, I felt like I found my long lost brother. It was the weirdest, strangest thing ever. And then, continuing to watch this documentary, which I highly recommend, Reality of the Truth, I began to understand what ayahuasca was and how powerful it was, and why exactly my spirit guides were guiding me to go to Peru to do this. Then all these things went together, the puzzle pieces just began to fit together, and then in July of 2018, we ventured to Peru. Me and 3 medical doctors ventured all the way across countries to South America to meet with Freddie Puma. We took the red-eye flight from New York City all the way to Peru, arriving there early in the morning in July of 2018. When we got off the plane, we were standing there waiting for the shaman and friends to pick us up when we spotted Freddie Puma, the shaman, and he started to approach us. Freddie, I had long sleeves on because it's winter there in July, and you couldn't see the tattoo that I have that says Spiritman. Freddie Puma walked right up to us, said hello, and then walked right up to me and said, "You are a great, powerful spirit man. Why are you here? You don't need the medicine." Then he looked puzzled and he pointed and he said, "You'll take the medicine for someone else." And that was in my intentions for one of my ayahuasca ceremonies. So Freddie packed us up into his little van with other people in Peru, and we headed to our hotel first. And then we headed over to his little sanctuary and temple space, where we first partaked in the very sacred ceremony of San Pedro, which is a cacti that is very potent and very powerful. It is like, I believe they compare it to mescaline. And when you partake in the ceremony of San Pedro, it's very intense. It's not like ayahuasca. It's very relaxing, very chill. But by the time the ceremony was over, we went to this sacred spot called the Womb of the Goddess in Peru. And then we went back to our hotel to chill when I and others became completely overwhelmed with emotion for no reason. Cried like you wouldn't even imagine. That was the release of the powerful San Pedro cacti. Afterwards, we had some dinner, and then we headed back to the temple space for some prayer and for some ceremony. And our first ayahuasca journey began in the temple space of Shaman Puma and others that were present. We lied on a floor on sleeping bags next to these big buckets that were by our head for the potential purging process. In that purging process, we release that which no longer serves our higher purpose. Basically, it comes out one way or another. We begin the ceremony with some drumming, some chanting to the sacred spirit of ayahuasca, and then we partake by drinking from the chalice a glass of ayahuasca, which I didn't feel tasted too bad, but it didn't taste too good either. We lie on the floor, the lights go out completely, the shaman begins drumming, and the journey begins. At some point, he offered us another chalice of the ayahuasca, which I partaked in, because I wasn't feeling it right away. Then the lights went back out, and the journey begins. And he starts singing the sacred song, Ayahuasca, medicine, medicine. Beautiful, powerful ayahuasca, medicine, medicine. And then boom, it all hit, like hitting a rock, straight on. I began my journey by being caught up in this giant spider web of darkness. That's what it felt like anyway. And I was in a cocoon, all wrapped up in this web, on this giant, giant spider web. And in the distance, I saw Mama Spider. And let me tell you, she was scary. She was fierce. She was bigger than a truck. Her eyes were as big as our head. And she started to crawl towards me, slowly. And I began to freak out. I opened up my eyes, hoping that I'd get out of my journey. But when I opened up my eyes, the whole temple that we were lying in was nothing but spider webs. And then I realized I had no other choice. I already submitted to the frequency of ayahuasca. I closed my eyes, and the spider began crawling closer and closer to me. I truly believed that she was going to eat me. And I was ready to scream, "Get me out of here." But again, I already knew I committed to this ceremony. And once you commit, there's no turning back. As the great big spider began to approach me, she smiled and she said to me, "Fear me not, my child. I will assist you. I will assist you and show you what you need to see." And then the spider cut me out of the web and I fell onto the floor. And then my journey began even deeper. I began to see things that were quite disturbing when it came to ancestry. And what Mama Spider was trying to show me is that we are all caught up on this planet Earth in this web of darkness. A web of darkness that goes all the way back to our ancestry. She began to show me in my ancestry where all of us, whether you want to believe it, and believe me, I had a very hard time accepting some of the things that I saw, where when I was shown that there was, of course, abuse in all our family ancestry, incest in all our family ancestry, and even satanic ritual and satanic ceremonies that are connected somewhere in our web of our ancestry. Quite disturbing. I saw things with my grandparents, great-grandparents that I would have never believed. But it got even much more interesting, much more darker, but led to light. Overall, ayahuasca was showing me that we are caught up in this web of darkness and we need to purge that process from the past. That's the purging process of ayahuasca. Ayahuasca attacks our ancestral roots in a good way, clearing out what no longer serves our current ancestry and current loved ones that live on this planet. That's why there's the purging process. It comes out, a lot of people, whether it's through vomiting or, one way or another, it comes out. The reason being, and what I learned, is that we all come into this life with 13 generations of our ancestry. We literally come into this life with a whole heck of a lot of baggage. A lot of good baggage and a lot of not so good baggage. And we carry that in our sacral chakra, or the navel chakra, the gut. So ayahuasca attacks that ancestral stuff in your sacral chakra and in your gut. And in turn, that's where the purging process comes in. And there is a purging process, again, in one form or another for everyone. Many people have told me over the years, "Oh, I want to go work with ayahuasca. Some people tell me they want to do ayahuasca. You don't do ayahuasca, you do drugs. Ayahuasca is a very powerful plant medicine spirit. And if you disrespect her, she will mess your day up. And I witnessed that in this journey with one of the doctors that I went with, who I knew had very dark entities attached to her. And at one point during this ayahuasca journey, I opened up my eyes and saw the shaman literally pulling energy from this person. Something that blew my mind. In Peru, it's interesting in comparison to North America and the indigenous and the spiritual people in North America, where we use sage, and we use the sage fan to clear energy and clear things, right? Well, in Peru, they don't use sage. They use black tobacco that grows along the Amazon where ayahuasca root grows. And ayahuasca is a very amazing vine that interweaves with each other that grows all along the Amazon. So instead of using sage, the shaman takes a pipe and he uses the black tobacco to blow the smoke into certain directions to clear energy. Now here in North America, we use tobacco as an offering to the spirits. In Peru, they use coca leaves. Yep, those kind of coca leaves, exactly. So it's kind of interesting the differences to the indigenous people in South America compared to those in North America and the different plant tools that are used to clear energy and such. So the shaman would take that pipe and he would blow it and he would do his work when he was doing while we're all lying on the floor doing his little ceremony. And I opened up my eyes and he had a bucket that he would spit in. And that was spitting out the toxic, bad stuff that he was taking in with the pipe. There was one point when I opened up my eyes and I literally saw this shaman pulling energy from this doctor who had very dark stuff attached to her, pulling it out of her, and I see it swirling around the room, so dark and so sinister and nefarious. And at one point, when he was hitting on his pipe, and this big cloud of smoke came up, instead of spitting, it looked to me like he threw up in the bowl. And then he was dazed and he shook his head, and then he looked right at me because my eyes were open. And he said, "You saw that?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I definitely saw that. I definitely saw that." And then I closed my eyes and my journey went deeper. This is where it gets really intense, where I literally saw the depths of hell. This goes to my intention that I wrote when I sat down to work with ayahuasca. You write down your intentions. And in this first journey, my intention was to help clear anything in my family and in my ancestry that is blocking us from our current loved ones that are on this planet, blocking them from living their fullest potential. So therefore, that was my intention. And then I wrote down intentions for specific family members. One of those family members was somebody I didn't talk to for at least 6, 7, 8 years, mainly because that person became a very severe alcoholic, and not the nice kind either, the very nasty, very mean kind. And I felt bad and wanted to make that part of my intention, to free that person from the grips of darkness that I felt that they were connected to. Interesting enough, the same person, decades ago, got involved with this woman who had a coven that was referred to as a witch's coven. What I learned from Spirit Ayahuasca, that this woman was a manipulator, and she manipulated her coven of people, one of them being a family member, into really believing they were practicing something positive when really they were worshiping something very dark and evil. And in turn, ayahuasca showed me a ceremony with this woman and a family member, and how she gave them something to drink to manipulate them and put them into a trance state of consciousness, in turn, indirectly selling their soul to the devil. You might not believe it's possible, but after ayahuasca showed me, I have no doubt. So basically, she manipulated the people in her coven into basically signing their souls over to the darkness. And they had no idea that they did so. This same member of the family had nothing but tragedies around them. Tragedy after tragedy after tragedy, leading to dark, deep alcoholism. What I began to see, what happened to that family member, the abuse that happened to them when they were little, and all the different things connected to this witch's coven. And then ayahuasca showed me from above, looking down on the depths of hell, where her soul was being held hostage. It was crazy and bizarre. And then in came the energy and physically saw Archangel Michael, who is one of the archangels I've been working with since he appeared to me in New York City during an event when I was reading, and the firefighter that passed in 9/11 came through with Archangel Michael. Ever since then, Michael has been one of the archangels, the closest archangel at my side. In this ayahuasca journey, Archangel Michael showed up. He showed me the signed contract between this family member and the darkness, showing me that they had no idea that they signed this contract. And only because of that reason, only because they were manipulated into it, Archangel Michael was able to use his golden flaming sword to cut up that contract. As his sword flung through that contract and it evaporated in flames, I began to see her soul rise up from the depths of hell, with all these demons reaching up. And then one of the demons stretched up and grabbed that person by the leg and began to pull them back down into the depths of hell. Archangel Michael swung his sword. I instantly felt the presence. I didn't see, but I felt the presence of Jesus Christ. And let me tell you, when you feel the presence of Jesus, there's no explanation. You just know. You don't need to see Jesus. You just need to feel the presence. It was the most amazing thing ever. Archangel Michael swung that sword, chopped off the demon's arm. The arm flew back down into hell, and the soul began to rise up into the heavens. And that was the most wild, amazing thing. And then showing me things in my ancestry that were quite so disturbing. The other thing after that, the spirit of ayahuasca took me in between the worlds, in between this world and the heavenly realms, and showed me that there were ancestors that I didn't even know that were stuck in between the worlds. One of them was my great-grandfather on my mother's side. I never met him, it was before my time, but he was stuck in between the worlds. And he was the only one I was familiar with but didn't know him. And there were a bunch. There was at least a half a dozen or maybe a dozen ancestors that were lost in limbo between the worlds. And then this amazing crystal ship or plane came, and I was able to load them up and cross them over into the heavenly realms. An amazing experience. What I learned and what I come to remember is that great-grandfather, when my grandfather was only 12 years old, came home from school and found his father, my great-grandfather, hung in the garage. He unalived himself. So that would make sense to why he may be stuck in between the worlds. Ayahuasca also took me into this room, this healing room where I lied on this big bed, and then all these sacred geometry. Amazing. It was so lucid and so real, so clear, and they were like neon, sacred geometric shapes and circles vibrating all around me and vibrating through my body. And ayahuasca told me that I am recalibrating your DNA, and I'm doing that for your family members too. Interesting enough, when that journey ended, and I did a second ayahuasca journey, which I'll share with you in a separate video. In this ayahuasca journey, being told and shown the web of darkness, when I arrived back home to Pennsylvania at the time, after this trip to Peru in 2018, that's when I learned a few things. About 2 months later, I got a phone call and learned that this family member suddenly woke up one day and just decided not to drink alcohol anymore. And as you know, that's just not what happens with severe alcoholics. Not only that, reached out to me, and that's when I opened up. Before, I wouldn't allow that in my life, but if you're sober, then sure, I'll let you in my life. Not only that, other people in the family that were disconnected all kind of came together. Ayahuasca brought people together. And then I also had this strong feeling that even cousins, second cousins, or anybody connected to my lineage on this planet Earth had benefited greatly from that ayahuasca journey. from the sacred geometry, the recalibration of the DNA, which recalibrates the DNA of others. And it was a wild experience. The other thing that came to me right after I arrived home was when Elon Musk started putting his satellites up into the sky. And I saw the grid of the satellites that he's putting up. When I saw that grid, it looked to me like a giant spider web. And it kind of made me think, was ayahuasca showing me the web of darkness, not only being us caught up in the web of darkness of our ancestry, but also the web of darkness that encapsulates this entire planet Earth, especially with that Starlink satellite systems that many people think are good. I have concluded that they are not good at all, that's continuing the web of darkness and keeping us webbed in on this planet and webbed into their web of darkness, keeping us under control. We need to fight this. We need to resist this. And in turn, in the long run, we will. We will come out of this, all of us. The whole journey, and that first journey with ayahuasca, was so powerful. After the ceremony, you go out to the fire, and they do offerings. And while you're in your ayahuasca ceremony, the ladies are in the upstairs in a separate space, creating these, I believe they're called mandalas, these beautiful works of art, gorgeous works of art. I mean, each one's for each person. And they put money in with this, a good amount of money. And then they throw it in the fire and they burn it. I was like, you're burning all that money? But that was the offering to the ayahuasca spirit. Always need to leave offerings behind. Just like when you wander into the forest and you decide you find a little rock that you want to take with you, you should always leave an offering behind. Again, here in North America, we leave behind tobacco and offerings of tobacco. South America, or at least in Peru, they leave behind offerings of coca leaves, which again, you know what coca I'm talking about, because coca tea is all over Peru. And it is not, it's overrated, and the fact that it's illegal here in the United States is ridiculous. Coca tea helped with elevation sickness. Just the whole overall experience was amazing. But what I do need to say is that ayahuasca, if you go there with disrespect, she will screw your day up. She'll screw a lot of things up. And that person, that medical doctor that was with us in this journey, who was very resistant, very disrespectful to the spirit of ayahuasca, laid in that temple for 3 days, sick as a dog. Ayahuasca whooped her butt. She deserved it. And that was the same person I saw Shaman Puma moving the energy from, that caused him to become dazed and literally vomit in the bowl. Intense. So people ask, does ayahuasca, many people try to relate it to darkness. You have to work with ayahuasca. You don't do ayahuasca, you work with her. And you need to work with her in the proper environment, with the properly trained shamans in South America, not in America. Now in America, there are different places that offer ayahuasca ceremonies where they fly people in from Peru or fly shamans in from different parts of South America to conduct these ceremonies. But outside of that, you don't work with ayahuasca in a garage with a bunch of people that have no idea what they're doing. Because in turn, you can open up yourself to very dark things. While you're in your ayahuasca ceremony, those shamans are working energy. They are protecting. They are burning stuff, and they are doing amazing work while you are in your journey. The most wild part of this journey for me that I thought was really interesting was how all of us, and there were 4 of us all together, all our journeys combined with each other. It was like we were all together. Better yet, the shaman saw our journeys. He even said to me afterwards, how about that spider? I'm like, how did you know that? And then he said to other people, how about that? Or how about this? He saw everything that was happening in our journeys. That was wild to me. Even more wild is after the first journey, the girls I went with said to me, how did you know that song? And how do you know Spanish? I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like, you were singing the song with the shaman. I'm like, I was not singing. And they all argue, you sure you were? Yeah, you were. Yeah, you were. I'm like, I don't know Spanish. And I don't know what he was singing. I had no idea. But part of my soul must have known the words. And of course, I'm sure in past lives, going back probably thousands of years, ayahuasca and I have met many times before. And she called me back again for the second ceremony in 2018. We committed to 3 ceremonies, but the After the second ceremony, we felt we were good. I'll be returning to Peru in 2025, but this time I will be journaling and vlogging my entire experience. Everything, as much as they allow me to anyway. I will record everything right afterwards so I don't forget any little details, because there's so much involved with these journeys and it's so amazing. And I say to you, don't seek out ayahuasca. Let her seek you out, because she will. She seeked me out. I had no idea. Perhaps you're watching this video today because now you're being called to do the same ancestral work that I have done and the ancestral work that I will continue to do. Perhaps this is your call to the powerful plant spirit, ayahuasca. I'll leave links below for Freddie Puma and also for the documentary, Reality of the Truth. And that was my first experience with the very powerful plant medicine, ayahuasca, the most potent hallucinogenic on the planet Earth. She's all natural, she's amazing. And the other thing that I loved about Shaman Puma's mixture is he added in different herbs to help with the nausea. So there was only one person that purged from the mouth. The rest of us purged the other way, but there's always a purge. But it helped with the nausea. That's why I highly recommend Freddie Puma and Shaman Puma. And again, I'll leave links below. I want to know what you think about this web of darkness, about this experience, and how we're all connected to this web in one form or another. That's what ayahuasca showed me. I want to thank you for clicking that thumbs up love button, sharing this with others, and perhaps you may be sharing this with somebody because it's their call to Mama Aya. A very life-changing experience, for sure. Thank you so much for listening to my journey and my experience with Mama Aya. And again, thank you for clicking that thumbs up. And my name is Joseph Tittel, aka Spiritman JT, spiritual medium and psychic for over 3 decades. If you want accurate predictions, prophecy, truth, great meditations, and amazing spiritual stories, and you want to vibe with our tribe, smash that subscribe, the bell and all, so that you get notifications. And a big thank you to all the supporters who help make this free content possible for everybody else. Till the next time, friends, remember, celebrate life. Celebrate you. Be kind to others as you wish others be kind to you. And more importantly, remember to be bold, be true, be kind, be you. Let your light shine ever so brightly. And have a beautiful rest of your day. Namaste, and much love, friends. Much love.